So it turns out that men's shirts are good for more than just collecting dust in the closet. I'm making a quilt out of thrifted button-up shirts, and in today's video I'm going to talk about how I prep and press and cut the shirts into usable fabric for a quilt. If you've ever wondered if you can turn those old clothes in the closet into a beautiful quilt, yes you can. I hope you'll join me. Hi, I'm Janet, and this is my sewing studio. Actually, it's my kitchen, but anywhere I lay my sewing machine is my studio. In part one of this series, I showed the shirts that I picked for the quilt, and I prepped them by cutting them apart, and I shared the pattern that I'm going to be using. So if you missed that first part, I'll have it linked in the description below so that you can follow along. Today we will get started cutting the pieces for the quilt, but before quilting we want to press and starch each shirt panel. Since these are previously worn shirts, a good press helps smooth out the creases and set the fabric for clean cuts. I use Mary Ellen's Best Press starch and sizing alternative. I will leave a link in the description below for that. I find that it gives a little bit of structure to the fabric without making it too stiff. Now, in this part of the process, it also gives me a good chance to feel out each fabric to see how it's going to behave and if I need to add interfacing. And I found that I have two shirts in my pile that might be a little more complicated to work with. And let me show you what those are. The first is this Swiss dot fabric, and it is very thin. Let's see if I can find another piece. Okay, this one already has interfacing on it, but here is this fabric, and you can see it's so thin. On this side is not interfaced, and then over here it is. I don't know if you can see that. Anyway, this shirt is so thin and really almost see-through that I have decided that I will interface it. And so I did a little test swatch to see how that would turn out, and it's great. So for that fabric, 100% interfacing. Then the other fabric is, or the other shirt, is this shirt that I thought was a chambray at first. But it's not a chambray from what I can tell. It's actually two layers of very thin fabrics, and they are connected by little sewn tacks, I think from one or the other of these fabrics. I don't know which one. So I can't just take this one out. I have to really use them as one piece. And so I did test this fabric to see if interfacing would help, and it actually really does. But since it is two pieces, you know, this top layer isn't interfaced. It's just the back layer that's interfaced. Anyway, I think that'll help to hopefully keep it straight and keep the two pieces together better. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do now, is put the interfacing on these pieces so that I can get them cut. Okay, and the interfacing that I am using is, I'm using a Pellon. The one that I have is P44F. It's a featherweight, really, really light interfacing. I bought it off Amazon, but from what I can tell, it looks like it's not available currently. So I have another interfacing that I've also tried. It's called 91SF, and I use both of these when I make t-shirt quilts, so I've had success with both of them. And I would say really either would be would be a good option, or any other brand of lightweight fusible interfacing that is reliable. Yeah, so I have this, I still have some of this P44, so I am just going to use that. This would be easier on my big ironing board and with my bigger iron, but that's all down in the basement, and I don't want to be in the basement today, so we use the little setup when we're upstairs. Okay, now everything is ironed and interfaced, the fabrics that I need. And so I wanted to talk about the pattern again. I'm using the Percussion Quilt pattern by Shadow Valley Quilts. There will be a link below in the description and probably also on the screen here. This pattern is designed for yardage that you might buy at a quilt shop. But I'm using shirts, and so that means that I need to be mindful of the sizes of the squares and the strips that I need. And I need to cut those pieces carefully from what the shirts have, what I have available in the shirts. So a couple of the shirts have straight lines and plaids too, so I'm going to factor that into my cutting process. I have my examples here, and one thing I wanted to show you that is kind of fun with this pattern is that the author, the designer, Lisa, she included a coloring page for this. And as I picked my shirts, the white is fabric number 1 in the pattern, but I kind of wasn't sure what I wanted to do for fabrics 2 and 3, which are here. This one is a very light, creamy stripe, and then the red. And so I played with this a little bit with, on this side, having the tan be first before the red. It gave me a good idea of what it would look like. And then on this side, I did it with the red as fabric number 2. And then I checked it also in person like this and decided that I would do it this way with the red as fabric number 2 and the tan stripe as fabric number 3. And I think that will give, for each block that's made, the white will be against a darker fabric. So anyway, that's kind of fun. And when you purchase a pattern, a digital PDF pattern, then you can print off as many of these color pages as you want and really plan out your quilt. And I think that's a really fun option included with this pattern. Okay, so I've started by cutting the white shirts first because the pattern calls for a large square pieces out of them. And I need to make sure that I can get all of those pieces out of these white shirts. And I thought that these 2 would be enough, but the Swiss dot shirt had a contrasting sleeve, so I didn't have usable fabric out of the sleeve for this, so it is a little tight. Now the pattern calls for 16 squares, and I thought that I would do 8 and 8, but I can't get 8 out of this straight away, and I can't quite get 12 out of this, and then I need another 4 smaller squares. So right now so I've done a little bit of piecing on this size square here to get 12 here, and I still need to work on these squares, and I need to cut these. So I will have to do some piecing, and it's not ideal, but it's going to be fine. It's going to be what it is. And what I should have done is I probably should have had 3 shirts. But you know, this is a learning process, and this is my first quilt just from shirts, and so this is a good learning process to really know how it's going to go. Now with the other shirts, I have so much left over, and we will talk about that in a minute once I get done cutting these pieces, because there is a lot of fabric left over. And yeah, so these pieces are already interfaced, and I did interface them a little bit bigger than the size that I would need, because I had a feeling that the fabric would shift a little bit in the interfacing process, and it did. I've got little uneven slivers to cut off here. Okay, so I'm looking at the pattern and trying to decide where I'm going to put the Swiss dot fabric and then the other. And I think that if I can get a 1/6 square out of the Swiss dot, then I can do all Swiss dot in this kind of middle square, because each square is getting cut into a triangle. So if I have 6 triangles, then I'll get, or 6 squares, then I'll get 12 triangles, which is how many there are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. Okay, so I think I'll have to piece a Swiss dot square, but that'll be good, because right now I have 5 full pieces. Okay. Another benefit of the coloring page. Okay, I will finish that off camera and come back and talk about the scraps, and we'll wrap up the video. Okay, we're back, and the pieces for this quilt are all cut. I was very happy that I really only needed to piece 2 of my white blocks, and so that is great. And I still need to sew the strips together, but I will do that later. So anyway, these are all the pieces for the quilt. And as I'm going through this process, I have ended up with a lot of scraps and extra shirt pieces, and I'm surprised, really. It's more than I expected. I really thought that more of the shirt would be used in the quilt, but here we are. And so wanted to show this. Okay, so these are all the pieces for the quilt. A cute little pile. And these are my scraps. And these are more of my scraps. So in this process of making a quilt thrifty with these shirts, my goal really is to be low to no waste. And so having all of these scraps is kind of overwhelming, and I really don't want to add more scraps to my stash. And so I am exploring some ideas for what to do with my scraps. And I don't want to turn this into a scrap channel. This is still thrifty, but in the whole big picture of this project, I would like to be able to not have a lot of leftovers. I'd like to use them up. And so I found this tutorial on Bluebell Hill Crafts. I'll link her channel in the description. And she had this tutorial on making a twisted cord for like little bracelets or something. So I have been taking all these cuts from the shirts, like the seams and the hems, and I've been making this twisted cord with it. And I mean, it's kind of rustic and charming. I mean, I just love it. I think it's so cute. So this is one little thing that, maybe I can make a bracelet with it. I don't know. But that's one way to use up some of these scraps. And I'm not sure what I'll do with all of this yet. I'll just keep using up these strips and make the cording. But if you have some ideas or recommendations of what I can do with the off cuts here, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear some creative ideas for using up the rest of the shirt. I have the possibility of, doing a pieced backing with the pieces. I could do that, or, I could make some other things with these. And maybe that'll be another future, prologue video. So now, okay, so that's the scraps. And now with all of these pieces cut, I'm ready to start the blocks. And this pattern, this percussion quilt pattern, it's beginner friendly, and it is really perfect for showing off these different shirt patterns. I think it's going to look really fun. And so in the next video, we will sew the blocks together and get the quilt top all sewn together and talk about how my plan for quilting it. And so if you would like to find out when the next video comes out, go ahead and like and subscribe and you'll be notified. Thank you for watching part 2 of making a quilt from shirts, and I will see you next time. Bye.